All
done
right.
stuff.
Well, we have meeting stuff to go over. Yes, indeed. So, I have a little brief list of things I wanted to go over, and then we can discuss interdepartmental things that might have happened over the week. But to kick things off, let us discuss the vote and no mic vote. So from the looks of it, majority were all in favor of players being allowed to keep their DMs for future missions, as indicated by the vote choice number 2, so long as both the DM and party wish it. There was some variance there in terms of like random chance and mission chains and whatnot, but overall, most agree that as long as the party and the DM wish to continue on with each other, then it shall be. This will go into scheduling and a bunch of other things like that, but going forward, that does seem like the plan. Let's see here. We also have, in terms of standard mission and player assignment, the vote is randomly assigned through a priority system with weights and whatnot, all the priority tags that we had before, to get the initial groups. So once an initial group is signed, then the continue on with the DM can start kicking in. But the initial parties will be randomized. That is judging based off of what has been voted here. And lastly, with the majority of votes going, I swear when I read this, by the way, which is why I'm a little confused here, is that these votes were slightly different, and I read this like 20 minutes ago, but maybe I'm just dyslexic, so I don't know.
It's also possibly Discord moving where like numbers are for some fucking reason on the React. I don't know why it does that.
Could be that. But in terms of vote number 3, in terms of should DMs be able to interact with their player assignment on standard missions, majority voted for the DMs cannot choose to replace or remove any members of a assigned group, with specific instances where this can be the case, such as if, there's a problem player. But overall, your group is your group in terms of initial assignment. And if the mission wishes to continue with said group, then it shall be. And I am not the best at explaining this, but Legacy's Fine right up here does give greater details of explanation of what these all mean. Essentially, though, initial group will be randomized like before. Follow-up groups will be based upon if the party itself wishes to remain with the Dungeon Master. And if they're wanting to, like, one-shots like with our part-time DMs. Which leads into the second point I wish to discuss. And that is, we have indeed confirmed that assistant GMs will be a thing, though they are to be renamed to part-time GMs, as that is the greater intention of what they are to be. Essentially, they will have the same basic training as game masters, and can, receive additional training if they wish to attain a full GM status, but they will go through the basic training of GMs and will essentially be able to run minor missions, possibly some lesser missions. Their schedules, whenever they wish to pick up a game, they are free to do so. That is the general concept for them, is that while they do have greater freedom in terms of their schedule as their own, they don't have a limit on how many games they need to run a month to maintain their tag. They do not receive, character slots or able to do a lot of the greater impacting storylines. So there is some trade-off there.
Just a comment real quick on the training side of that. The training for part-team GMs is actually going to be the same, at least initially. Obviously, ascending to higher tiers or seniority is going to be different, but technically part-time GM is more like an opt-in, I guess. Yeah. As the training is the same. So.
Yeah, the training is the same. I thought I said that, but if it wasn't clear, Sithams is correct, yes. They are getting the same initial training. Yeah. Overall, though, I have in the roles signups channel up at the top of the Grand Council that has the ability for those who are wishing to switch to this less strict version, the less impactful version of GMs. So you can react there, gauge the tags if you want to keep both, just being, both a part-time and standard GM, then you are free to do so. The first reaction is a toggle for the part-time, and you have to have the GM tag to be able to take it. And then the one below it is to remove the GM tag if you have part-time. If a GM fails to meet their quota, we'll, ask to see what's going on, to see if, they might need to go on hiatus or not, but general thing will be brought down to part-time for the most part.
And a potential loss of character slot as well.
Yes, yes. That was going to be the next thing I was discussing. Full GMs will receive a character slot if they so desire to use it. You do not need to be like, I remove my character slot or anything like that. If you wish to have a character, so long as you're a full GM, your character is yours. There are a few exceptions. Region heads. Their characters are limited in where they can be ran. You would be continent locked. So if you are a region head of Kalbesh, you cannot run a character in any of the 3 regions in Lasholti. So Kalbesh, Free Marches, Arendelle. But you could have a character in the opposite continent. Similar thing to co-heads, except for they can run a character in the same continent, they just can't run a character in the same region. And if it comes down to it, then, you guys can get teleported off to the other continent if it comes down to it. But,
get yeeted.
Yeah, get yeeted. Every other GM, you are free to run in any region, though it is highly, highly suggested you do not run in the region that you DM for the most part, as metagame issues are really difficult to ignore if you have, metagame knowledge of things. So, even the best GMs will metagame. It's just matter of fact.
So let's just avoid it wherever possible.
Yeah. Let me look at my notes I had to go over. Player cap. Alright. Based off of our GM count, we'll determine the player population for the phase. This is something that's going to be in flux until we're a couple of weeks out from kicking off. Right now, we're looking at probably about 200, 240 players, but that's likely to change, especially since we'll be starting recruitment in the relative near future based upon what systems will be opening up there, and with the changes in part-time GMs from GM to part-time. Let me just read chat to catch up. Yeah, it's hard to switch off meta knowledge. So, it's the safer bet to just avoid things that you'll be focusing your GM lands in. Before I continue to the next set of things, are there any questions regarding what we've just discussed?
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but do we want to allow GMs to enter the player lottery?
I mean, if they don't want their, are you saying they don't want to, if someone doesn't want to necessarily, wait, can you repeat your sentence?
So, I imagine you're meaning for part-time GMs, because full GMs already have a character slot.
Well, right, yeah. But for either, I could imagine a full-time GM wanting a slot so that in case they aren't able to fulfill their role, they have that. But that's
I see.
So,
I see.
That's sitting on the fence. And that's also that's if you take that slot, someone else isn't getting that slot.
Yeah. I would say, for the most part, a full GM is covered. A part-time GM could sign up for a slot, but that's something we should discuss in more detail in terms of skewing in favor of players or whatnot. Or
you said
like
that a part-time GM doesn't get a character slot, right?
Yeah, so I am in favor of a part-time being able to sign up for the lottery. But it's something to discuss properly. I feel like that's going to have a decent amount of discussion.
I mean, if they couldn't, then they'd be essentially GMing games occasionally, but having no character slot. And them not having it means they're not taking it away from someone because they wouldn't get the slot from GM.
No. I'm talking about full-time GM signing up for a character slot.
Yeah, I was talking about part-time,
If a full-time GM signs up to get a lottery character slot and then stops being a GM, that means that character slot that they would have would disappear because the number of players that we can have is based on the number of full-time GMs.
Yeah. So I would say, right off the bat, part-time GMs, I don't have an issue with it. Full-time GMs, definitely discussion to be had, but I am leaning towards negative in terms of them being able to sign up for the lottery. But something that can be discussed in a proper adventure meeting. That seems something that we should discuss.
I didn't actually have a strong opinion either way. It was just something I thought of that I think needs to be addressed.
Yeah. It could also be kind of like what we did in the previous phases, as Zach suggested, in terms of after a few months of being a GM, your slot becomes permanent. Something else to discuss during that meeting. Part-time GMs, the current idea is they will receive a civilian slot, if they so wish to use it. They can choose not to use it. But just like with full GMs receiving a player slot, it is always an option if they so choose to eventually make a civilian. Yeah. Any other shoops-a-whoops questions? Oh, I see you have one in chat there, Uber. It can definitely be a sticky situation in terms of co-heads being able to run in neighboring regions, which is why I'm in the land of it's recommended you don't. Kind of like with GMs not being able to run in their own region that they focus in. But it's really just that, because co-GMs aren't really... They're closer to standard GMs in terms of that they can run in most any region. It's just that they're the assistant to the head of that region. So they will have greater knowledge, which is why that particular region should be avoided. But overall, since it will have a lot of influences from the other surrounding neighboring regions, it is encouraged to avoid, but I'm not entirely against them using it. This is something we can discuss further if people would like, in terms of limiting them to a similar setup to full. I'm right now in the boat of they can run, just avoid their own particular co-region. Basically, meta. It's hard to avoid. So, just don't run in your region.
Even if you try and avoid it, it's going to slip every now and then by accident and just... Yeah.
In terms of full GMs getting a civilian slot, I mean, I'm not against them having a civilian slot, whether they want a civilian adventure slot. If you mean by having both,
no, both.
That is, yeah. It's a little...
You get to choose which one you want.
Yep. That's where I'm standing right now as well. If you get to choose. But if you want to have a civilian or adventure, you can choose one, and it's no problem for me. So. And same thing if you like retire civilian, like I want to be an adventure now, or if you retire adventure, I want to be a civilian now. Works for me.
Oh, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but have we given any thought to like who's eligible for the lottery?
So anyone with a Living World member tag will be eligible. I will be giving some more announcements closer to launch so people will know to get that tag, because that's who will be adding and who will be able to see the channel where we take the poll questions from, determine who is added to the lottery. Additionally, part of what we discussed earlier would be that those players from the previous phases would have a boosted chance to become a player in the Living World. Not like a huge boost, but a boost nonetheless. So that is the current idea.
Just give him 2 draws instead of 1.
Yes.
Easy enough.
Something similar to that, yeah.
What I was thinking of in particular is we want to try to make sure that it's one entry per person to the extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
So tech-wise, I don't know if that means doing verified Discord accounts or what.
Tech-wise, the poll will be asking for the Discord ID, as well as, I believe, to ensure this email could work, but I'm not full on email. I know Discord ID as a requirement will ensure that we get proper people. Email is just so they can't sign into another person and be like, here's my name again, because I know that is possible if you don't have an email assigned to it.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any way we can totally shut out multiple entries, but we could make it a little bit more difficult if we require a mobile phone verified account or something like that.
Something like that. It could also just be when we go through the things, if we Control F a name, just
requiring any doubles. Requiring Discord TFA could help reduce that a lot, because then they can only use their Discord account tied to the server.
Yeah. Something to think on, definitely. But yeah. Any other things regarding this current topic? All right. Just reading chat real quick. Cool. Another thing that I added would be the thing that people probably saw most recently, the addition of the EU, AU, US, and Asian roles for reaction roles and role signups, which it's not like you have to be from the US to have the US tag. It's more of a general when can you run, so we can get a better gauge on the population of what players can actually find games easily enough. So if we have like a lot of US GMs, which I'm sure will be the case, or like a decent mix of US and UK with some AU, we'd have a better understanding of our players, so we can tell them what will likely be openings for their particular time zone or their particular schedule. Because I know some US players are grave shift style. But,
yeah, boy, third shift.
Yep. But it is there, so we can get a better gauge of what players we can properly run games for. Because I know we had a lot of issues in the past where a lot of like EU and AU players were having issues. So hopefully this will help mitigate that issue. Also, the assigned groups hopefully will help mitigate that, as well as the part-time GMs. Anything from that while I look at my next topic to be discussed?
Oh, in the peer review stuff, I've seen a few systems now proposed that don't really specify who's responsible for implementing or adjudicating them, and I would ask that moving forward, when we're discussing these systems, that these documents should at least propose who will be running them.
Oh, so you mean like the crimes and punishment system, for example?
Yeah, it didn't.
Okay, that's fair.
That's political.
I would add
Punishment was always political.
It was definitely political, but for clarity for those who might not know, if you are making a document, I would have at the top of it just like a subtitle thing saying department, what department it would belong to. That'll help clear any confusion up. Most of the things that were discussed most recently would be political for clarity. Like the crimes and punishment system, the prestige system would be a mix of adventure and political. What are the other ones we discussed? I'm blanking right now. There's some, but those are the two that immediately came to mind.
Those are the two that have been talked about the most, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I ask that for me, looking at the documents and trying to understand them, and also when they become rules in the running phase, players will need to know who to talk to about what.
Indeed. So definitely for those, anything in peer review, it's just overall for them, they are just something to discuss. They're not fully fleshed out for purposes of those who might be watching. They're not set in stone. Once they are, they will be posted in their relevant department channel and be added to any relevant rules page that might be required. But yes, if you are making a document to have reviewed, I would give a look over and make sure that you have a listing of what department it would belong to. It might belong to multiple departments, which case you can be like department political adventure or creation / adventure, whatever went on. But yeah, for the most part, that it should be decently obvious for certain ones. Like RP events will be pretty easy to tell that that's an RP event thing. But for clarity, if you would, add a little thing at the top.
Redundancy is good.
It is. Miscommunication is always the bane of people's existence. Let's see here. Yes, groups for our players. The current plan is to have 4 to 6 players per mission. So you can, when you're making a mission, you can say this mission's 4 players, this mission's 5, 6, whatnot. Minimum to run. So if you've already have your players assigned and you're already like you're one session or something and one player can't make it, minimum to run is 3. Show must go on, rule can occur there, all that good stuff. But if at that point it is if your party wishes to postpone so the 4th player can make it, for example, then that's totally fine. But minimum to run is 3. Maximum standard party group size is 6. There will, of course, be exceptions, because I know that we had some fun games that were like raid-style missions that, while somewhat lengthy, can be mitigated by having multiple DMs and the like. So, search events, I do not want to just outright say they cannot exist. But standard party size, 46. In addition to that, as kind of already mentioned, games are assumed to be 3 times a month. This is up to the GM himself, so if you want to do like 3 games in a row and then have the 4th week in a month a break, or 2 games and a break, and it's all up to you. But players should expect 3 games a week for the most part. They might have additional to that.
A week?
3 games a month. 1 game a week.
Sessions.
Yes.
My heart.
Yeah. Dear God, that would be crazy. But yes.
Killed Pi.
I killed Pi. 3 games a month, 1 game a week. That is the assumed number of games a player should expect. Not the thing I said previously. From that, though, with the addition of the part-time GMs and the like, additional games could be had, because you might have you might finish your mission after 3 sessions, and then a part-time GM's like, hey, look, I'm running a game if someone wants to join. You can hop on that. We are capping it, though, to 1 game, period. There's no normal mission / special mission that you can be in at the same time. That is the current plan. Any questions there?
So we're doing a 1-to-5 ratio.
Most part, yes. Yeah. So I imagine most GMs will probably stick with the 5. Some will do 6. Some will do 4. But most time players will be about 5 per group.
You can't be in 2 places simultaneously. That's correct.
Yeah, once per week is players' maximum. 3 per month is the standard.
That's what we hope.
It is our hopeful goal. Hopefully, with the changes where GMs are assigned and we have the part-time GMs to help out, it will be reached. But if we have like an abundance of Australian players and like 3 Australian DMs, that'll be difficult. So
then someone stays up until 2 a.m. and they run then, obviously.
But hopefully with the systems we're working on, it should mitigate these issues and ensure that we reach our 3 games per month for players. Any other questions? All right. Well, that is a thing. I have a brief thing to discuss on. This is more just so the recording will have this in it. Not really. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to kind of scroll through it and give a brief discussion. But the Bestiary type guides for the different monster types and whatnot has been provided. I post it in many lore channels and relevant channels so people can look at that. But just to go over it for the stream's purposes, basic guide that tells you what different types there are in the universe, as well as brief lore description of the different monsters and their subtypes, and what tier of play you'll generally be able to find them or fight them at. Big thing here is you'll see that there are two different types of tags. There's the restricted and the unique tag. Unlike the previous phases where we had the restricted tag and then the Verum note, which was basically the thing saying that, oh, you cannot run this, or there's something very specific to the setting. The unique just means that you'll need to get permission to run this, and it's not as common. I think there's like 2, maybe 3 uniques in here. Most part, things will be fairly open to be used. Some might be restricted to tier. So like you might see the, I can't remember the name for this. It's the undead that are liches and vampires. Like those would be a restricted, I believe. Or maybe there were just 3. There might be 3. I either put them restricted or I put them at 1 tier above where I would normally be able to find them. Because you could find them as a boss at the 1 tier lower, as an example, which is why I might not have put them as restricted. Restricted would be those that I wouldn't even consider boss potential at a lower tier because of how rare or how difficult they might be. But going over the tier types of mobs, we have aberrations and their subtypes of animalistic, deep ones, great old ones, which are like the worm that walks, Cthulhu, great patrons. These things are things that you will very rarely fight, hence why they're unique. Hive, there'd be things kind of like the Flood, if you're aware of Halo, or the Tyranids, things of that nature. I also have some examples listed out there that are real creatures in base like 3.5 and like insectoids, and madness aberrations, and mutant aberrations. And then we have beasts with the subtypes of animal, behemoth, dire, and vermin. Behemoth would be things like the Moby Dick, the great white whale. So, massive creatures of enormous size that seem to be primal in nature. Constructs, fairly obvious what those are. Chemical, animated, clockwork, golems. Dragons with their drakes, lenorms, pseudo-dragons, true dragons, and worm-blooded. You have elementals, which are emotional, natural, and spiritual. Goes into details on them as well there. You then have fae, with their subtypes of seelie and unseelie, which are the autumnal and winter courts for unseelie, and then the summer and spring courts for seelie.
The bad and the good.
It's not really, but yeah, it's kind of.
Well, traditionally.
Traditionally,
it's more like tricky and murderous.
Yes, that is the real theme there. You then have giants, which have cyclopean, lesser giants, true giants, and titans, which are another unique listing for obvious reasons, because Titan. Humanoids just goes into the different types of humanoids, which you already have the categories listed out on the World Anvil, but this kind of goes into a brief of description of what they might be. Some of them might have more description to them. So like, see Elven here have a bit more to it than some of the others, which is just like, they have ape ancestry, for example. Just going through all those different types. Undying are a special case, as the Undying will be home to templates in addition to races. So I'm going to go in a bit more detail here because Dhampir, for example, would be a race. Dhampir is a partial vampire. A template would be like the Soul Fractured, which is someone who took on the Lich Ritual and failed, thus turning into a Soul Fractured where their soul was shattered and their body broken. So that specific race is a template that's added on to other races, as an example. Another one would be the Revenant, which is the template that would be applied to anyone who is dead, who wishes to take on a resurrection quest to become resurrected. So if a player is like, I really like my character, my party doesn't have access to diamonds, let's resurrect me. then a resurrection quest can be made. And they would, as they are playing through the mission, they would be having the Revenant template rather than being a standard character that they were. So those are the humanoids that need a bit more detail. You then have Monstrosities, which have the Bestial, Sentient, and Shifter subtypes. Oozes, which have Amorphous, Blights, Jellies, and Pudding subtypes. Outsiders, which pretty in-depth. I'm going to go through them for the most part pretty fast because there's a lot of them. You have Astral, Axiom, Celestial, Fiends, Harbingers, Inner, Outer, and Planar. You then have the different key species of these outsiders. There's a lot. You have the Aeons, the Agathians, the Angels, the Archons, the Asuras, the Axiomites, the Azatas, the Cursed Ones, which is a custom one for the setting, the Daemons, the Demodans, the Demons. You have a lot of information. The Devils, the Divs, the Genies, Inevitables, Kami. Oh dear God, I gave them a lot of information. Chitons. Actually, no, I think that's all base Pathfinder because I really like base Pathfinder. Manasuputra.
I know a lot about base Pathfinder.
Yeah,
so this is very refreshing.
It's all Pathfinder, yeah.
And most of it's Pathfinder near the bottom because I like the base Pathfinder lore. That name's difficult, but Manasuputra, I'm going to go with that. I'm sure I butchered it. Oni, Proteans, Psychopomps, Clipoths, Rakshasha, and Sakil, I believe is... Nope, Slotty. Forgot I added the Slotty. And Slotty, which used to be aberrations, but they are now considered outsiders. You then have plants, which have the subtypes of Blighted, Ents, Monstrous, and Shamblers. And finally, undead, with the subtypes of Consummate, which are those who have a piece of their soul still technically, air quotes. So like Liches would have theirs put in a phylactery, vampires would have theirs bound to the curse in a way, so that's kind of a bit more in depth there, which I'll have in the vampire write-up, which I'm working on, which is why I haven't responded to Bruges people yet, by the way. Hungry, for, basic ghouls and other somewhat sentient undead that are not mindless or consummate or shadow. Mindless for zombie, skeletons, things of that nature, and then shadow for, any incorporeal undead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we have special restrictions on things that would just, breed themselves out of control? Like, for example, undead that have the ability to turn creatures they kill into undead automatically. They're not, broken. I'm talking about shadows. I'm talking about the strength-stealing shadows.
Yeah, so...
Those are funny.
Certain creature restrictions can be applied. Anything that the group thinks should be added to this list, we can discuss properly in adventure meeting and add it to a special note down below the type that it would be under.
It would also be good to consider how there are some creatures that might need to be added to a higher listing of what GM tiers need to use them, because if a low-level GM throws them ghouls and the players don't deal with it and they leave, well, now there's a ghoul infestation in that town, which given a week would destroy the town and also pose a threat to the entire region.
Are they Lovecraftian ghouls or are they traditional D&D ghouls?
Don't D&D ghouls give you ghoul fever and then you rise if you die to that?
Yeah, no. Traditional D&D ghouls,
right?
For the most part, they do.
So yeah, anything regarding
you need a gas to do that.
That's true. Anything regarding like a creature that can cause these issues that is left alone would create additional missions, probably multiple, depending on the severity of how quickly they can spawn new creatures. Which is just free content for us, really. If a player fails to make a mission, we already have a storyline made. That's easy clap work done. We have maps made, we have monsters made. It's already there, so it's not really an issue. The big issue though is if those missions then fail, then we might have a campaign on our hands. Which case the region head definitely needs to be fully involved to properly delegate that out and whatnot. But that should already be part of the region meetings where people would discuss the missions had and the effects that they might have on the region itself during the region meetings that would be should be held in the future. Regarding your question, Uber, for stat block adjustments, if our stat blocks, which for the most part should be fairly balanced for all the different tiers of play. I've been testing them out in my home games, all of them. The low levels are highly tested out. The higher levels, like the higher levels, aren't as tested out, but I have done some practice runs with them, so they should achieve optimal results, but a party could be poorly equipped for something or something of that nature. If it comes down to it, the best way to avoid like mistakes you might have made, so if you gave this creature something that for example, if you gave it 34 regeneration per turn, which I did in a game last Sunday, if you think that's too much, if like the party are just being completely destroyed and you think that it's too much and they have yet to see it, or they have seen it, you can do some small adjustments. So like if they've seen the creature's regeneration for 34 and they're just getting completely wiped because they are while they would be prepared for this, you didn't really quite gauge how powerful the regeneration might be. You could have a thing where you're like, hey, players, you see that this creature has a weak spot here. If you attack it, you know, you can lower their regeneration that way. So things that you can do that makes it seem like they are doing things the proper way that you had no intention of happening, but because of the situation where mistakes were made, you can do it on the fly and it will look natural. I would recommend not just saying, oh, the creature dies, it gets swarmed away by some random happenstance things, so like avoid that nature of play. But if you need to like ignore an ability that they've never seen because shit's going down south real quick and you made mistakes, or the player made some mistakes to the point where it's just all sorts of fuckered, you can ignore certain abilities. But for the most part, I don't think it's going to be the case, and try to only make things that try to only remove things or adjust things that can be made sense from an in-character point of view. So, like, if you had planned to hide 6 ghouls in a bush, in addition to, like, 6 skeletons that were attacking the party, but the party are having issues with the 6 skeletons, and even though the guidelines say that 6 skeletons plus 6 ghouls is a balanced encounter, it might not actually be a balanced encounter, because our guidelines are still essentially a test. You could remove some of those ghouls, for example, saying that there's only 3 in the bush instead of the 6 that you planned. That'd be fine. But, you know, don't remove things that are already known without having the players do it themselves. You want them to feel like they are achieving the result, rather than, you know, just hand-waving, saying, I feel bad about this. If that is your question, hopefully that answered it. Just reading through chat because there's a lot of post-its. There's a lot of post-its. I missed so much. Yeah, which said, avoid doing monsters that have no counterplay. So if you have a monster that has an ability to cause like constant poison that is only cured through lesser restoration and you're dealing with level 1 players, just remove that ability. You want players to be able to counter whatever you can throw at them, and whether it be flavorful or actual mechanics that they have.
Alternatively, don't overcompensate because, oh, my players are absolutely destroying this. Don't buff things mid-combat.
Yeah, don't definitely
do that.
Yeah, it's always fine for your creature to die and for you to think up of something else that might challenge them in a future encounter, or even just like in a future like mission.
Yeah,
because if they're level 1 to 3, it's fine for them to steamroll things.
Indeed.
Levels 5 to 6, they'll probably surprise you with the feat that they got at level 4.
And what Witch said in chat, if your players are having fun, let them have their fun. But if you think that the encounters you've designed might be a little too easy for the party, it is fine to do some minor adjustments to future encounters.
There's also the thing where you can put objective-based combat, where it's like, oh, you can kill this thing in however many rounds you like, and that still counts as a success. But there's this time-limited bonus objective, so if you want to really stress yourself and like waste action economy during multiple rounds, you can go for this bonus objective and make your life harder.
Yep. Bonus objectives are always a great addition. Always fun. But that is the general idea there. Any other questions? Metric for monster difficulty. So, monster difficulty is based off of the rank of monster, so mob, elite, lieutenant, boss, and then the level of play of the monster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Groupings of 2, essentially up to 20. And that'll determine the CR. The CR is gone over in the traits document and how we calculate it, but essentially, mooks are 4 for their designed level. Generally rounded down, except for level 1 to 2, because 4 CR and half CR exist. Elites, they are half of their assigned level, so if they are a 1 to 2 mook, half of 1 is 0.5, so half a CR. If they're a 3-4, then they would be CR2, because 3-4 divided by 2 is 1.5, rounding up is 2.
I got one thing to mention about the CR system.
Yes.
Are we using is the actual CR integrated into anything else?
Right now it's just a gauge to determine general combat strength of an encounter, because I do have it in the counter calculator. It's also determined to gather experience in my own home games, but for Living World, it's really just a quick gauge to determine basic encounter design.
Okay, I was just going to point out that I would rather people just straight up use the rank of the monster and the level range, because CR can get quickly confusing, because what I don't want to happen is people using multiple bosses of a lower level that technically have the same CR as mooks of a higher level, because
totally
I
fair.
can totally see something like that happening eventually. Because of miscommunication, part-time GMs, people being busy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair point. Something to look into, because it
hasn't happened before, but
yeah, I have ran in the Viking campaign mobs who are boss rank and mobs who are like lieutenant rank from lower mission tier, so like a 3-4 boss, as like an elite for a higher tier mission. But overall, it is something to look at, because the values that you are given for a boss compared to a mook or an elite is vastly different. So like if you're looking at a 10-11 elite versus a 3-4 boss, that could work. Their general power level is pretty similar, but overall, when you're making your missions, try to keep your monsters at the same tier of play or lower. So if you have some shocker lizards in your mission that might be designed for 7 to 8 player, level 7 to 8, that's fine. You can have some random lower level monsters in it, but avoid higher level bosses and the like, or lower level bosses in your higher level mission, because bosses and lieutenants are tricky.
I want to address No Mic Check really quick. So we don't exactly have templates, but there are monster abilities that are similar. We have the trait system. So instead of a template where it changes everything about a monster and makes them one way, you can give all monsters in a let's say it's a zombie game the plague trait, and it's based off of their rank and everything. And it just basically gives every monster in there the ability to bite something and eventually turn it into a zombie or make it sick. But it's balanced because we have a trait point system, and some mooks might not be able to get that trait or get a dumbed down version of it, and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. The trait system is in the Bestiary on the adventure docket. Yep, should be adventure and then Z Bestiary, and then it's just the enemy trait list.
This is back from the old days. basically, and it's probably going to be edited.
Send me your email. I'll add it in to the doc, or you can send it to someone else. Most people here should be able to add you in, especially their leadership. So.
What's you need?
Yeah. If anyone needs to be added, just send someone on leadership your email that needs to be added, and we'll get it sorted.
All right, I'm gonna go get Witch in there real quick. Know that you were not in there. Weird. See, I'm going to give you access to the adventure folder in general, which should give you access to all these subfolders.
Can you do that for me as well, Nerp, if you don't mind?
Yep, send me your email, and I shall do it.
Wait.
You know, there's an issue when you do not copy the first letter in an email. And that is that I invited someone else and I go delete that.
Oh no.
Oh god, no.
You know, since we're waiting
Imagine
around for
being
this
invited to a random Google Doc.
Yep.
For this to get sorted,
What
we'll
Google
play
Doc are we looking at?
lovely soundbite.
You. I see.
God damn it.
I love it.
I forgot. I forgot Shrub took that. God damn it.
Just playing my elephant noise. All right. My tempted elephant noise.
I enjoyed it when I was watching that session.
I thought that was R2D2.
It's a joint one.
All right. I have you added in. Gonna get you added in next. I deleted the rando I added as well. And making sure you guys have access.
Nerp,
yes.
You did make sure that it's not showing up in the stream, right?
Yes. I made sure that my visuals were off before I turned anything. So this is just a black screen for stream right now.
Yeah, we have to ask.
Yeah. I don't want to have to go back into freaking Premiere and delete things again, so I'm a smart cookie this time. Anyways, just we're back.
Making sure.
All right.
That'd be pretty epic. You could leak my email.
I'd rather not. Leaking is bad. Anyways, that there would be the things that I had to discuss. Anything from the other departments that people would like to bring up?
Sithams, do you want to mention your thing with training here?
What thing with training?
Like, when we might be opening up.
Oh, yeah, whenever I finish writing up the replacement sample mission, Smile.
Nice.
Fair enough.
I don't know when that'll be, because I'm being lazy about it, but we just need to replace the sample mission for training, and then we'll be good to go.
Cool.
Yeah, well, what we could do is just reflavor the current example one. That way it's no longer in the VARM setting.
Yeah. Someone still have to do that. That's still effort.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Preferably, the example mission has examples for more than just combat style missions. That's kind of why I added the current one in, because it's got challenges and combat and things like that. So
having guidelines on non-combat missions would be good.
The new one will obviously include stuff similar to the list of skill checks for certain tasks and whatnot, because obviously in the initial write-ups, we want to see people being able to determine those things on the fly.
Yep. All right. Anything else for training?
Manny's traps.
Yeah.
No.
Although the traps are kind of like combat, because it's made so that way, even if you don't have a rogue, you're not completely fucked.
That's good. I always like to make my traps with an option to be smart about them, to disarm them, or to break them. That way people can avoid them multiple ways.
There's a flow chart.
Yep. So, good stuff. Anything else for training or the like? All right. Anything for other departments? I see that Sack wishes things.
Yeah, for Divinity, we did have our first meeting. We discussed a lot of the things. The major thing that I can actually talk about, given the spoilers, is there will be a piety system. I'll be talking to political and RP events about it. And creation, since there will be some mechanical stuff, but it's not going to be quite as strong as Theros' piety system.
Will be drawing inspiration from Theros?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I just have to figure out things like how fast people can gain piety, what can gain piety, etc.
Sounds good.
Just don't. Well, I'm not sure if it would be good or bad if players start doing a bunch of things in the world to get a bunch of piety.
Yeah, I just don't want to run into a situation where someone says, like, pings RP events 50 times, do 50 riddles to gain 50 piety or something like that.
Yeah, definitely something to balance into it.
There shall be limits, God.
Maybe just make it at a certain point where it's like, okay, you've been doing this little stuff for a long time now. We don't care if you do this little stuff. You're expected to do this little stuff.
Mechanical aspect for the gods getting tired of your bullshit.
Or it's like that nun who works every day, every year at the orphanage and is like just worshiping God. Obviously, they're not a saint or anything, but yeah, they're doing their part.
It's kind of like one of the things that I had ideas for the Fame Infamy system, where doing something enough times will eventually not net you any benefit. Kind of like if you are killing a bunch of like goblin, soldiers and the like, and you're known as the Goblin Slayer. Eventually, there's only so much fame you can get from that. Eventually, it will cap out.
Counterpoint, there's a whole anime about that.
There is a whole anime about
it
that.
was a shitty anime.
But
Counterpoint, that dude is really
Whoa.
One thing I want to touch base with is for all the region heads, we'll be working with you to create gods for your regions, if you so choose to have gods directly connected with your regions.
Good stuff. Definitely gonna
finish the locals.
Yeah, definitely something to be had. Some regions, I imagine, will have false churches, especially like those more evil regions.
Spoilers, huh?
And each god will have a church in some way. A kind of organization is something that we also determined.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, love me some Dragon Age, or not Dragon Age. I mean, do love Dragon Age, but love me some Dragon Lance. Their initial setup there. It's good stuff. Yeah, anything else to bring up? All right.
That's all I can really bring up in this meeting.
Gotcha. Anything from other departments?
Political has been quiet because we didn't have a meeting this week.
RP events just training, so we're not doing much at the moment.
All right. Anything?
My only thing is that if you have a meeting, please put it in the meeting channel because I work third shift. So while I can't make a lot of the meetings, sometimes I'm actually awake.
Yeah.
That's it.
Meeting channel is helpful.
Ori is currently on vacation till Tuesday, so not much from creation.
Yep.
Outside of that initial meeting.
Indeed. Any questions? Any stuff people want to ask or anything of that nature? Otherwise, we are Gouda. See people typing, so I'm going to give that a chance.
Oh, I think I got this answered in text, but it occurred to me, did we ever talk about what systems we're launching with in one of our meetings?
We have not talked about that yet. It's something to bring up during the next adventure meeting, definitely. Definitely wanting to heavily discuss the homebrew systems that I currently use, such as the Martial Specialized, the Arcane Specialized, or not Arcane, Spellcasting Specialized systems. Things of that nature. But we will be starting off with RP events. We will be starting off with adventures. That's just a guaranteed. We should be starting off with a crafting, updated crafting system, but my system is currently here if it comes down to it, and I will continuously be working on it. So eventually we'll be up to a point where it is a universal system the way that I know the Imp was wanting, but I don't know Graham stands currently, as I've yet to ask them. But we play a game together on Thursdays, so.
Is there a tech dependency for crafting?
It will have some tech involved to it, yes. I know Sithams is aware of that part itself. But, it is a system in works at the moment, but it definitely will have some tech requirements. Whether this just be a tick down of your downtime day or something else, it will have some version of tech.
Essentially, every single system has to run semi-autonomous, so that way we don't burn people out just doing the job a robot could do.
Yep.
Yeah, that was something when I saw the complexity of the crafting system, I worried a little bit about that, but...
burning out from doing stuff. Who would do that?
It is definitely a complex system, which is why I want to get together with crafting to fully determine what we can do to help that situation, because I'm not against adjusting it to make it more simplified. But something to discuss with crafting when we have that proper meeting. In addition to that, tech side of things, once it's set up, like I already have a spreadsheet made in a Google Sheets to calculate the price of things and all that. That's already set up for me. So the tech side of things, once it is set up, it's pretty easy. We can just get things snap of a finger, essentially, once it's made.
Maybe another way to think about it would be, we could think about the systems we'd like to have at launch, and then what systems would actually block us from launching if they're not ready.
That is definitely a good thing to look at, yeah. I would say, because that is definitely a good point, any department heads, think on what systems you'd like to have at launch, so we can get a proper list of this for next Sunday. And I'll be looking at Adventure and my own homebrew to add onto this list as well.
Hey, if general directors count, I'm putting in my petition for Shrub to make me a summoner class.
See, I'm already working on that.
I'm not in creation, so no.
Damn it.
Charles, you have to talk to me and Chrono about that.
It's true. Big thing, though, is that anything that's Pathfinder, if it's like a base class, I'm probably going to be remaking it eventually. So I wouldn't worry too much about the Alchemist or the Summoner, the Cavalier, or anything of that nature. So it's probably going to be remade at some point.
What about the Shaman?
If you do remake those, can you please, on God, Sir Nerp, don't make them terrible classes that don't functionally work and only work up to level 5, and after that, you're better off just multi-classing.
Well, there's a reason why I'm going to be reworking the Warlock and giving them the Unchained Warlock update.
Yeah, good.
Ayo, Pog.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Fuck Ivory Tower Gaming.
I was going to say, I would be happy as long as Swashbucklers still have their one-hit kill move at level 19, so that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, any other questions? Yeah, summoning is definitely something I'm working at, looking at adjusting. But that's another story. Like some of the base summoning spells I wanna fix, because dear God, having 8 giant Ingles makes things difficult.
Summon 8 fucking cows from the 1 cow stat block that has them as medium sized, and they all just fucking run and do their charge attack, and they only have a plus 5 to hit. Okay, but each of them are dealing 46 damage.
So please, if you rework summoning, please just put animal companions, summons, and pets and familiars all in the same pool. So we don't have that one player that likes to be a smartass and likes to take a little bit from everything, because even if it's unoptimized, it's technically not against the rules.
So you're saying not having a summon Eidolon, a familiar, and an animal companion at the same time?
Yeah, basically fuck Pathfinder.
That is a hot take, my friend.
It's indeed a hot take. Something to look into.
Take.
But
What's CMD?
It's like all these systems should just be one thing. If you're a player with something else on the battlefield that helps you, it should all just work into one thing. So that way it's like, even if we have 5 players with that thing, it's just 10 pieces on the board. It doesn't suddenly spawn into like a fucking small army against like 6 mooks that you made.
So I do hear what you're saying. I do somewhat agree. The big thing here is I would like to have a core companion and then a familiar. I think having those options would be fine, but having an Eidolon and an Alum companion definitely could be a bit much.
Beastmaster Druid will always exist. Beastmaster Druid is oh boy.
Yep. Yep.
You can't do anything about that.
Anyways, any other questions? All right. Well, appreciate all of your faces. Good meeting, good stuff. All the help that you guys provide is very much appreciated, and
also no items that summon fucking companions, because I know some of you bitches are gonna make something like that.
Sure, well, something like that. Anyways,
we'll see, Manny. We'll see.
Good stuff. Good meeting.
I was here.
But that is the end of the meeting. You guys are free to stick around, discuss things and whatnot, but I'm going to head out and get myself some food.
Have a good one, nerd.
Yeah. Yep.